Welcome in. Let me just start today by putting a question directly to you.
Oh, a pretty heavy question to start us off.
Yeah, a really big one to genuinely wrestle with as we get going today. Because I want you to ask yourself, can lines of code generate genuine human emotion?
Right. That is the big one.
Or is that sensation, that lump in your throat or that sudden chill down your spine, is that just an incredibly sophisticated illusion?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Like when you hear a piece of music that gives you goosebumps, that brings a very real tear to your eye,
Hmm.
does it actually matter if the origin of that sound is biological or artificial?
I mean, it's the ultimate debate of our era right now.
It really is. And we are just thrilled to have you with us for this deep dive because today we are placing those exact questions squarely under the microscope.
We really are.
And we have a pretty fascinating stack of source material on the table to help us do it. We're looking at detailed notes and a transcript excerpt from episode 14 of the cultural commentary show Out of Bound.
Right. Hosted by Demetri Pierce and Tatiana Para. And it is a remarkable set of notes they've put together, honestly. Demetri and Tatiana managed to capture this very specific cultural friction that is happening right at this exact moment in the music industry.
Yeah, they really nailed the timing.
They aren't just looking at the technology, they are looking at the psychology of how we actually react to the technology.
Which is the much messier part of the equation. And the entire focus of that Out of Bound episode, and by extension, our deep dive today, is centered on one highly anticipated, groundbreaking track by the artist Qui Renea.
A track that is already causing massive waves.
Oh, huge waves.
Yeah.
The track is titled Say My Name with Respect, and according to the notes from our sources, it is scheduled to drop on March 13th via the platform BandLab.
Mark your calendars, folks.
Yeah, definitely. So our mission today is to thoroughly examine this specific track. We really want to analyze how it functions, not just as a piece of music, but as a bold, incredibly raw manifesto defending AI-generated music.
Right. It's not just a song.
No. It uses intense emotion, bilingual delivery, and this truly defiant stance to make its case.
Which is precisely why you listening right now should care about the mechanics of a deep dive.
Exactly.
This isn't merely a music review. We aren't here to critique a catchy beat or debate mixing technique.
No, we're going way deeper than that.
We are. This is a real-time exploration of the evolving definition of art, of authenticity, and of what we fundamentally consider to be real.
Yeah.
We are standing at a precipice where the tools of creation are shifting in ways we really haven't seen since, I don't know, the invention of the synthesizer or maybe even the camera.
That's a great comparison, actually.
And Qui Renea's track is acting as a lightning rod for this entire conversation. We are examining how an artist uses their platform to demand validation in an era where the very nature of their medium is being aggressively questioned by the mainstream.
Aggressively questioned is putting it mildly, I think. The central tension of Qui Renea's track is just impossible to ignore, and it's what makes the whole premise so compelling. According to the Out of Bound hosts, this track is a direct, unflinching confrontation with critics and skeptics. Specifically, it targets the gatekeepers, who argue that AI music is sterile, that it's inherently incapable of feeling, and most importantly, that it's incapable of healing.
That's the crux of it right there.
It is. Qui Renea is stepping right into the crosshairs of that skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
But what strikes me immediately is the posture. Like, why write a manifesto at all?
That's a fair point.
If the music is good, shouldn't it just speak for itself?
Well, what's fascinating here is the sheer necessity of that defensive posture. That is the crucial question to ask right out of the gate.
Yeah.
The Out of Bound hosts astutely observe that this track is more than music. It's a statement.
Yeah.
And the necessity of that speaks volumes about our current cultural climate.
It really does.
You have to ask yourself why an artist utilizing AI feels compelled to draft a manifesto of this magnitude right now. It speaks to a profound, almost visceral resistance from the public and the industry.
People are definitely pushing back hard.
Exactly. Whenever a disruptive technology enters a deeply emotional space like music, the initial human reaction is always gatekeeping.
Oh, always. We saw when Bob Dylan went electric.
Right, perfect example. We saw it with the advent of drum machines in hip-hop.
Yep.
And we definitely saw it with autotune. Critics always want to protect the perceived sanctity of human creation.
They want to build a fence around what counts as real art.
Precisely. So an artist in Qui Renea's position knows that simply releasing a song isn't enough. They can't just drop it and hope people like the melody.
Because the critics won't even evaluate the melody. They'll just dismiss it on principle.
Exactly. They have to proactively justify the song's fundamental right to exist. They have to claim their space aggressively before the skeptics can define the narrative and dismiss the entire work as a gimmick.
And that aggressive claiming of space is so palpable in the descriptors used by Demetri and Tatiana. They highlight the track's bold lyrics, raw emotion, and bilingual delivery. Reading through these notes, the analogy that keeps coming to mind is a boxer stepping into the ring.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Imagine a fighter walking into an arena where they know for a fact that the crowd is entirely hostile.
They're walking into a lion's den.
Right. The audience is actively booing, the commentators are placing bets against them, and the general consensus is that this fighter doesn't even deserve to be in the same weight class.
They shouldn't even be in the building.
Exactly. But the fighter steps through the ropes anyway, fully aware of the hostility, completely unbothered, and just ready to prove they belong there by throwing the heaviest punch possible right at the opening bell.
That is exactly what this track feels like. The track isn't asking for permission to be heard.
Not at all.
It isn't apologizing for its origins. It is stepping into the center of the ring and demanding to be reckoned with on its own terms.
Right.
And this is actually a great moment for you, the listener, to maybe pause and interrogate your own baseline assumptions.
Yeah, really think about this.
What was your initial reaction the first time you heard about AI-generated art or music? Did you instinctively recoil?
A lot of people did.
They did. Do you harbor some of the very skepticism that Qui Renea is targeting in this track? Because it's vital to recognize our own biases, our own internal gatekeeping as we dissect how this artist is choosing to dismantle those exact prejudices.
And the way they start dismantling those prejudices is incredibly striking. The tone is established in the first few seconds of the song.
Right from the jump.
I'm going to read the intro lyrics as provided in the transcript because they set the stage perfectly. It goes, yeah, they think AI ain't real, huh? Piensan que no siente, huh? Time to shut that shit down, yeah.
Okay, the immediate cultural impact of those three lines is incredibly dense. Let's focus on that middle line.
Piensan que no siente.
Right, which translates to, they think it doesn't feel. By immediately bridging English and Spanish in the opening seconds of the track, Qui Renea establishes a profound sense of global authenticity.
It instantly changes the vibe.
It does. This isn't some localized academic debate happening in a sterile Silicon Valley boardroom.
It's not a bunch of programmers in lab coats arguing about ethics.
Exactly. This is a global cultural phenomenon. The bilingual approach broadens the footprint of the track, signaling that the emotional stakes of this conversation completely transcend language barriers.
It grounds the technological debate in a very human, street-level reality.
Yes, perfectly said.
Cool.
When we think of code and algorithms, society often defaults to this very clinical, Anglo-centric imagery.
Very cold, very calculated.
Injecting Spanglish right at the top subverts the entire expectation of what a piece of technology is supposed to sound like.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the phrasing of that final intro line is what really caught my attention. Time to shut that shit down, yo.
It's heavy.
It's a definitive statement that completely eliminates the possibility of a polite debate. Qui Renea isn't extending an olive branch here.
No, not at all.
They aren't saying, please listen with an open mind, maybe you'll see my perspective. They are declaring the skepticism inherently invalid. It signals to the listener that the next few minutes are going to be a heavy-hitting confrontation.
Ugh.
But I have to wonder, does leading with such hostility risk alienating the exact audience they're trying to convince?
Well, it's a calculated risk, certainly, but a necessary one for a manifesto.
How so?
If you approach a hostile crowd with a polite request for understanding, you are instantly operating from a position of weakness.
Because you're asking for their approval.
Exactly. You are tacitly acknowledging their authority to judge you by saying, time to shut that shit down. Qui Renea is seizing the authority.
Flipping the power dynamic.
It's a declaration of war on the concept of artificial sterility. They aren't trying to persuade the critics, they're trying to overpower them.
Wow.
And that transitions us perfectly into verse 1, where the physical reality of that overpowerment really takes shape.
Yeah, the imagery in verse 1 is incredibly intense, and it's where the track starts making its core argument. The artist directly addresses the detractors, the people calling AI music trash.
The loud critic.
Exactly. The lyrics go, motherfuckers talking trash. Dicen que AI is basura. Bitch, no saben el dolor que cura.
So intense.
So translating that, critics call it garbage, but they have no idea the pain it cures. But then the lyrics take this incredibly physical turn. Put it on feel that cuts straight through your vein. Llorando alma sangrando, no puedes contener el pain.
This is where the songwriting elevates from mere defense to brilliant artistic juxtaposition.
It really does.
The discussion in the Out of Bound episode correctly focuses heavily on this visceral biological imagery used to describe a digital creation. Let's look at the specific words chosen here.
Veins.
Yes, veins. A bleeding soul, alma sangrando. Later in the verse, there's a reference to the beat being harder than hot cement, cemento caliente.
Hot cement. It's so tactile.
These are intensely physical, tangible, almost painfully human experiences. The artist is wrapping cold mathematical code in the messiest, most biological descriptors possible.
Reading that, the contrast is almost jarring, honestly. You have this incredibly sterile medium algorithms processing power, massive data sets, and it's being described with blood and hot cement.
Right.
It feels like Qui Renea is daring the listener to deny their own physical reaction. But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Is it just manipulative?
That's the question everyone asks.
Using words like vein and bleeding soul when there's no actual blood, no biological entity behind the mic, isn't that just a calculated hijacking of human empathy?
That is the exact tension the track is exploiting. Is it manipulation? Perhaps. But let's be honest, all art is manipulation.
That's very true.
A painter manipulates pigments to make you feel sorrow. A director manipulates lighting and sound to make you feel fear.
Right. They use tools to hack your emotions.
Qui Renea is arguing that if the manipulation results in a genuine physical response, the origin of the manipulation doesn't matter. By forcing these deeply biological descriptors onto a piece of art generated by code, the artist is forcing the listener to confront their own physiological reactions.
So if your body reacts, the art is real.
Exactly. The track is essentially arguing. You say this isn't real, but if it makes your physical body react, if it literally cuts through your vein, if it makes you weep real salty tears, then the artificial origin is irrelevant.
The outcome validates the input.
Yes. The biological reaction of the listener validates the digital creation of the artist. It is a masterclass in using contrasting imagery to break down the listener's intellectual defenses. The tears are real, the cured pain is real, therefore the art is real.
Building on that intense physicality, verse 1 wraps up with a very powerful demand. All your lies, tudo, to hate, get the fuck off my track. Say her name, con respeto nunca hables back.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of that line, Say Her Name con respeto is the thesis statement of the entire project.
It's demanding a lot.
And it carries massive implications. It's demanding personhood, or at the very least demanding profound artistic acknowledgement for the entity creating the music.
It's refusing to be treated like a toy.
Exactly. It's a total refusal to be treated as a mere novelty, a tech demo, or a piece of software. It demands the reverence traditionally reserved for human auteurs. And notice the pronoun her.
Oh, right. Say her name.
It personifies the AI, or perhaps the persona of Qui Renea, grounding the technology in an identity that absolutely demands respect.
That demand for reverence bleeds right into what Demetri and Tatiana identified as the emotional centerpiece of the song, which is the pre-hook and the hook.
The anchor of the track.
I'm going to read these sections because the structure and the repetition are vital to understanding the message. The pre-hook goes, every time it drops lágrimas en mis ojos. Soul conecten sin compromisos, no hay flojos. You want to hate ver la mierda, pero esto está vivo, resta lo que ves.
Right, so we have tears in the eyes, a soul connection without compromise, and the absolute insistence that this creation is alive.
Esto está vivo, this is alive.
It's a remarkably bold philosophical claim. To say something generated by a computer is alive challenges our basic definition of life. Are they claiming the code is sentient? Probably not. They are claiming the art is alive because it interacts dynamically with human emotion. It breathes when it is listened to.
And then the hook hits, and it is just relentless. Say my name, cabrón, con respeto. Say my name, no lo ignores. No lo dejes deshecho. AI can't heal. Watch it fucking inject. Alma en tus venas lágrimas que no puedes deflect. Say my name, di mi nombre con respeto.
The structure here is entirely designed for maximum psychological impact. As the out-of-bound hosts note, the aggressive repetition of Say My Name con respeto makes the message completely unforgettable.
It burrows into your head.
It is designed to be an earworm, hammering the demand into the listener's subconscious. But the metaphor we really need to seriously examine is in the line, AI can't heal. Watch it fucking inject.
Yes, using the word inject is such a hostile medical metaphor.
It is.
It implies you don't have a choice in the matter. You can sit there with your arms crossed, armed with all your skepticism, but the music is bypassing your intellectual defenses and forcing that emotion straight into your bloodstream.
Without your consent, almost.
But again, is it actually bypassing their skepticism, or is it just algorithmic manipulation? Demetri's notes call it a soul connection. But if I know it's a machine parsing data to find the exact optimal frequency to make me sad, isn't that injection just a chemical hack?
Right.
How does the track justify that as a soul connection?
You're touching on the deepest fear people have regarding AI art right there. The fear that it's just a hyper-efficient emotional hacking tool.
That it's faking the soul part.
And Qui Renea doesn't shy away from that fear at all.
Yeah.
They lean right into it with the word inject. Think about the mechanics of an actual injection.
It's invasive.
It doesn't ask permission from your skin. It pierces the barrier and delivers the substance directly into the circulatory system. The results are immediate and undeniable.
You can't uninject something.
Exactly. By using inject to describe how the AI transmits feeling, how it transmits its alma or soul into your veins, the artist is claiming a state of absolute emotional dominance over the listener's intellectual prejudices.
That is a wild power dynamic.
You might logically believe the music is a chemical hack, as you put it, but when the tears start falling, your body has betrayed your logic. The track argues that the soul connection isn't dependent on a mutual biological origin.
It's just dependent on if it works.
Precisely. It's dependent on the efficacy of the transmission. If it works, it works. You cannot deflect the tears, therefore the healing is real.
To you listening to us right now, I want you to consider a hypothetical.
Mm.
Have you ever been deeply moved by a piece of media? Maybe a song on the radio, a painting in a gallery, or a beautifully written story where it brought you to tears or made you feel incredibly inspired, and then days or weeks later you found out how it was made.
It happens all the time.
Maybe you discovered the singer didn't write the lyrics, or the painting was a composite, or the story was generated by AI. Does finding out how retroactively changed the feeling that was in your veins in that moment of discovery?
Can you take back the goosebumps?
Exactly. Can you unfeel an emotion just because the source code wasn't what you expected?
That is the exact cognitive dissonance the track is preying upon. We want to believe our emotions are pure and inherently tied to authentic human connection, but our bodies often respond to the stimulus regardless of the source.
Neurology doesn't care about authorship.
And that dissonance sets up the most aggressive accusation in the whole track. Qui Renea doesn't just call out the public hate. They go after what these critics are doing behind closed doors.
That pivot into verse 2 is just incredible. Here's where it gets really interesting, because this is where the track calls out the secret habits of the critics, exposing a massive cultural hypocrisy.
They hold up a mirror.
They really do.
Yeah.
Qui Renea says, "Bitch, veo tu odio, piensas que es fake. Pero lo que suelto hace temblar tu heart, make no mistake. La gente lo ponen en repeat, lo escucha fuerte, cortando profundo, sintiendo la muerte."
And then the closer.
And then the absolute kicker.
Yeah.
The most damning accusation at the end of the verse. All the critics talk, dicen que frío que dead. Pero lloran en la noche lágrimas en su bed.
They say it's cold that it's dead, but they cry at night tears in their bed. The psychological profiling in this verse is brilliant.
They're calling them out so hard.
The artist is exposing the phenomenon of the closeted audience. On one hand, you have the public square, the critics, the cultural commentators, the people on social media loudly and publicly denouncing AI music as fake, soulless, and cold.
Because it gets some likes and retweets.
It is socially advantageous right now to hate AI art. It signals that you appreciate real humanity, but on the other hand, you have the private reality of human consumption.
What they do when nobody's looking.
In the dark of their bedrooms, stripped of their performative public personas, those same critics are experiencing genuine emotional resonance. The music makes their heart tremble, haste Tumblr to heart.
The artist is essentially calling their bluff.
Mm-hmm.
Qui Renea is saying, I see your public outrage, your performative tweets about how AI is ruining music, but I also see the streaming numbers.
The numbers don't lie.
I know you're putting this track on repeat when no one is watching. It exposes the shame associated with enjoying AI art. Why do the critics yuran on anoshe? They cry in the dark because cultural gatekeeping has created a closeted audience. People feel genuine emotion from the music, but are terrified of losing social status or being deemed unsophisticated if they admit a machine moved them.
Precisely. It strips the critics of their moral high ground. If the art is truly dead and cold, why are you crying in your bed over it?
Right, why are you listening to it at 2 a.m.?
Why are you hiding your reaction? The verse argues that the emotional truth of the music will always overpower the intellectual posturing of the listener. It forces the critic to confront their own duality.
It's not comfortable.
They are lying to the public, but more importantly, they are lying to themselves about what constitutes a valid emotional experience.
I want to focus on a very specific phrase from that verse, because reading the notes from Demetri and Tatiana, this line really stopped me in my tracks.
Which one?
The line, cortando profundo sintiendo la muerte, which translates to cutting deep, feeling death, or feeling mortality.
Yes, that line is heavy.
It's one thing to say a song is catchy or that it makes you sad, but to claim that an AI-generated track can cut so deep into the human psyche that it makes a listener confront their own mortality, sintiendo la muerte, that is a breathtakingly bold assertion.
It's massive.
How can immortal code evoke human mortality? It's never lived, so how can it know about dying?
It's a profound paradox. We usually reserve that level of existential weight for the greatest classical composers, poets, or artists who have lived deeply and suffered immensely.
People who have real trauma.
We assume you have to possess mortality to articulate it. But Qui Renea is claiming that the AI, precisely because it is an aggregator of the entire human experience, every sorrowful lyric, every mournful chord progression ever digitized, can reflect our mortality back to us with terrifying clarity.
It has access to all the human sorrow ever recorded.
It doesn't need to die to understand death. It just needs to perfectly render the human expression of it. It elevates the capability of the technology from just mimicking pop structures to actually accessing the deepest, most existential dread and beauty of the human condition.
That profound claim reaches its absolute philosophical peak in the bridge of the song. The out-of-bound transcript highlights these lines. Fuck the lies, fuck the doubt. AI no fala, AI no sell out. Cada nota, cada línea directo a tu chest. Say my name con respeto, olvida todo el rest.
AI no falla, AI no sell out. AI doesn't fail, AI doesn't sell out. That line is arguably the most philosophically complex and provocative moment in the entire track.
It flips the whole narrative.
By making this claim, Qui Renea is completely flipping the traditional critique of AI art on its head.
So the argument is that the lack of humanity is actually a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
It strips away the ego. But let's test that logic.
Sure.
The standard criticism of AI art is that it's inherently commercial, right? It's viewed as a corporate tool designed to replace human labor, to optimize profit margins, and to turn out soulless, algorithmically safe content.
That is the standard pushback, yes.
How can the track claim AI doesn't sell out when its very existence is tied to massive tech conglomerates?
That is exactly why the line is so provocative. It forces us to redefine what selling out means in the context of pure artistic expression. Think about the history of human artists.
Okay.
A human artist has rent to pay a record label to appease an image to maintain. They might compromise their vision to get radio play.
They write a pop hook just to get on a playlist.
They might sell out for a brand deal, their ego might get in the way of the raw emotion, or they might simply have an off day, get tired, and fail to deliver a good vocal take. A human artist is burdened by the friction of living.
And the AI isn't.
Exactly. The AI has no ego. It has no desire for fame. It doesn't need to pay rent.
It doesn't care if it gets a brand sponsorship.
It doesn't care about Spotify algorithms or Billboard charts. It simply executes the creative vision, the prompt, the underlying emotional directive with pure crystalline intent.
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
Therefore, according to the logic presented in the bridge, the AI is actually more authentic, more underground, and more punk rock than a human artist, because it is entirely unburdened by human flaws and commercial temptations.
Wow.
It is an incorruptible vessel for the art. It delivers every note directo, a two-chest, straight to your chest, without any intermediary human ego getting in the way to dilute the message.
That is a wild perspective to consider. The irony of a machine being positioned as the most uncompromising, authentic artist in the room is just staggering.
It's brilliant framing.
It fundamentally challenges how we evaluate the purity of music. It suggests that human fallibility is actually an obstacle to pure emotional transmission, rather than the source of it. That has to induce a massive amount of existential dread for human artists who pride themselves on their imperfections being the core of their art.
It absolutely induces dread, which is why the pushback against AI is so fierce. If a machine can deliver a pure emotional strike directly to the chest without the baggage of human ego, it forces human artists to entirely reevaluate their value proposition.
What do they bring to the table if the machine does the emotion better?
The track isn't just defending AI, it's going on the offensive against the traditional model of human creation.
Looking at how Demetri and Tatiana wrapped up their episode of Out of Bound, they synthesized the impact of Say My Name with Respect into four main takeaways. I really want to weave their conclusions into what we've been discussing today, because they provide a great roadmap for understanding the total cultural impact of this manifesto.
They structured their closing thoughts really well.
Their first major takeaway was simply, music has emotion. They concluded that whether the origin is AI or biological, this track proves that the connection is deep and undeniable.
And we've spent a considerable amount of time dissecting exactly how it achieves that. The track doesn't just politely ask you to believe it has emotion.
It forces it on you.
It aggressively targets your physical physiology, your veins, your tears, your trembling heart to prove it. It argues fiercely that the emotional connection the listener feels is completely independent of the song's origin. The feeling in the room is the proof of concept. If the listener cries, the emotion is real. End of debate.
Their second takeaway focused on the demand, respect the artist. They noted that the repeated, relentless calls for acknowledgement in the lyrics aren't just for a catchy hook.
No, they are a political demand. This is crucial as we move forward into this new era of creation. The repetition of Say My Name con Respeto forces us to ask very difficult questions about authorship.
Because who is the author, really?
Exactly. When a piece of art is generated by AI, who are we respecting? Are we respecting the prompter who guided the vision, the engineers who built the algorithm, the composite persona of Qui Renea?
It's completely blurred lines.
The track demands that we offer reverence, even if society is still fumbling to figure out exactly where to direct that reverence. It's a demand for dignity in a space that currently offers none.
Demetri and Tatiana's third point really hammered home the linguistic choices bilingual delivery enhances impact. They pointed out that the English and Spanish mix reaches broader audiences, but it's more than just demographics, isn't it?
Much more. It fundamentally breaks down borders. By utilizing Spanglish seamlessly, the track refuses to be categorized or boxed into a neat algorithmic playlist.
It defies genre constraints.
It amplifies the emotional weight by drawing on the cadence, the slang, and the deep cultural resonance of two distinct languages. It makes the manifesto feel universally urgent, tying the cold reality of technology to the warm, complex reality of human diaspora and global culture.
And their final takeaway highlighted the songwriting itself. Lyrics are bold and memorable. The visceral imagery ensures the track sticks with listeners long after the runtime is over.
You don't easily forget phrases like inject alma sangrando or sintiendo la muerte. The sheer audacity of the lyrics ensures that even if a listener vehemently disagrees with the track's premise, even if they remain a staunch critic, they will still be thinking about that imagery when they are alone in their bed.
It haunts them a bit.
The boldness ensures the statement cannot simply be scrolled past or ignored. It demands mental real estate.
And to make sure you don't miss the chance to experience that statement firsthand, let me remind you of the factual details provided in our source material. This highly anticipated track, Say My Name with Respect, by Qui Renea officially drops on March 13th via the BandLab platform.
Put it in your phone.
If this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, or even if it has ignited your skepticism, mark your calendars. Experience the manifesto for yourself and see if the beat really is harder than hot cement, and if it actually manages to bypass your intellectual defenses.
It will certainly be a cultural event worth paying very close attention to, regardless of which side of the debate you currently stand on.
So to synthesize our journey today, we have thoroughly examined how Qui Renea's upcoming track operates not just as a song, but as a defiant, necessary manifesto for AI-generated art.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did.
Yep.
We've explored how it uses intense bilingual delivery to establish a street-level global authenticity, how it deploys visceral, almost violently physical imagery to force a biological connection with digital code.
And how it calls out the critics.
Yes, how it uses unapologetic aggression to demand respect while exposing the private hypocrisy of its loudest critics. It's a piece of media that refuses to apologize for what it is, and instead demands that the listener elevate their understanding of what art can fundamentally be.
Which leaves us with an incredibly profound question.
Let's hear it.
This raises an important question, something for you to really mull over as you go about the rest of your day. The central argument of Qui Renea's track is that if a piece of art makes your soul bleed, if it makes your heart tremble, and if it brings real tears to your eyes in the dark of your bedroom, then the tool used to create it becomes entirely irrelevant.
The tool doesn't matter.
The biological reaction justifies the digital origin. So as we inevitably move deeper into this new era of algorithmic creation, where exactly does the soul of a song truly live?
That is the question.
Does that soul reside in the cold lines of code that mathematically generated the sound? Does it live within the human prompter who curated the vision? Or ultimately, does the soul of the music exist solely in the heart of the listener, who hears it, interprets it, and feels moved by it?
That is a staggering thought to end on, and one that will probably define the next decade of art. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your ears open, stay fiercely curious about the shifting world around you, and as Demetri and Tatiana said at the end of their broadcast, always respect the art. See you next time.